Leon is a basement-dwelling bum obsessed with a dating sim where gender roles are reversed and women run the world. After finishing the game, he speedruns his own death by falling down the stairs and gets reincarnated into the same game where he exploits the system to become an overpowered knight and stack a harem of top-tier waifus.
Are you after my body?
It all starts when Leon is playing a dating simulator game on his console, but can't seem to score a chick much like in real life. As he laments over his NPC status, he gets a text from his sister, who is enjoying a vacation abroad. This frustrates Leon because she forced him to play this game in exchange for hiding the fact that he's in defeat. He goes on to complain about how the world of this game is a typical Dungeons and Monsters type, with the addition of flying bikes and advanced battleships. To top it all off, the characters wear a power suit and engage in war, and since that makes the game too hard, he decides to buy a battleship from the in-game store. He also realizes he's basically a twitchy girl in a world where women run everything, and the only way forward is by pulling boys. After painfully going through the entire story for the next few days, Leon finally gets all the best endings and decides to get something to eat as he hasn't eaten or showered in a few days. However, he gets dizzy and wobbles off the stairs, which causes him to fall to his demise. He then wakes up in a grassy field in a different body and returns home to his parents, who scold him for running off. His father Balkus is hauled over by a rich lady named Zola, who reminds him of everything the Bartford family has achieved just because she let him marry her. That night, Leon asks his brother Nix why they're out here playing real-life Minecraft hardcore while the others stay in the house, only to learn it's because Lady Zola despises them. Nix further explains that they're just sons of a mistress, and their whole existence is a participation trophy in the family tree. He also tells Leon to focus on his studies or he might not be able to marry someone from the academy, which piques his curiosity. As their conversation continues, Leon learns that, unlike his own world, women have all the power here, which makes him realize he's inside of the game he was playing earlier. 10 years pass, and Leon realizes that the Bartford family is not even in the main game, which means he's an even bigger loser in this world compared to his original. However, having beaten the game already, he used his knowledge to live his NPC life in peace. That is until one day, his stepmother Zola tells him he is to be married to a daughter of a court noble. The only problem is, she looks like your mom. Leon argues he's supposed to find his partner at the academy, but Zola makes it clear that she has no intention of wasting money on his education, just so he could get a shawty on his ding-dong. After Balkus reveals they really don't have the money, Zola asserts that he must attend the marriage meeting or he'll be forced to join the army and die a painful death on the battlefield. With his extensive knowledge of the world, he asks his dad to give him a ride to the academy, hoping he'll meet the game's protagonist. However, he is attacked by a carp queen on the way and quickly defeats it to gain some XP. Following that, he comes across a transporter he saw in the game and tries to enter it. He loses his ship in the process, but makes it to an abandoned facility where he runs into a sentry robot. After defeating it with an electric shock bullet, he walks through the halls and arrives in a room where he sees the skeleton of a man who died waiting for GTA 6. After taking his keycard, he goes into the back garage where he hopes to find the ship he had bought IRL. However, he runs into another sentry robot, who scans him as an intruder and is about to blow him up, but Leon hits him with another electric shock bullet. This time, the robot doesn't go down, but rather activates a shield that absorbs bullets. As a last resort, Leon hurls a grenade at it.
It was at this moment that he knew. He up.
Leon is eventually caught by the robot, and it asks him what year it is. Leon's lack of response tells it that he is a new breed of humans capable of using magic. It further adds that these humans won a war that destroyed an old civilization. Hence, it's his top priority to eliminate the new order of humans. As Leon is getting squeezed to his death, he pulls out his knife as a last resort. He sticks it in the robot's face, which luckily disables its body. But it continues to talk to Leon through the comm system. An injured Leon wobbles to the control room for another scan, and the robot learns that he does in fact have a battleship to his name along with traits of the old human race. The robot then asks what he would like to name his new ship, and Leon chooses the name Luxion because that was its name in the game. He then explains how he's stuck in this pay-to-win game, but Luxion's fried processor fails to grasp what he is saying. Soon after, Leon begins losing life in his body and starts thinking about his sister before collapsing. However, Luxion notes that his vitals are dropping and transfers him to the sick bay. 3 months later, Zola criticizes Leon for not only ruining his marriage but also losing his life, but Balkus believes his son is still alive. Just then, they hear a ship outside and rush to see that Leon has finally returned with Luxion, and this time, he has more riches than Elon Musk. With this money, he turns down the marriage offer and joins the academy as he had initially planned. But things are only gonna get tougher from here on out. Later, Leon waters the plants in a great mood because he keeps thinking about how much Zola must hate her life right now. On top of that, He's also an independent knight and has found an uninhabited island suitable for a baronet. Luxian suggests turning it into a tourist spot to make more money, and has already started working on some basic constructions. As he prepares himself for a peaceful life, he learns that he's been granted the title of Baron because he not only cleared a dungeon but also discovered a new floating island. Now that he's a noble, his father tells him that he'll have a higher status wife like Zola, which makes the guy regret his entire life. Later, Leon heads to the capital of the Holford Kingdom to attend the academy where he'll spend the next 3 years finding a shoddy mad enough to let him tap her. He then sees some supposedly handsome guys walking in and realizes they are the love interest of the protagonist. Just then, a girl named Angelica appears and Leon recalls her as the rich antagonist of the game, who happens to be the daughter of the Duke. Despite being surrounded by royalties, Leon decides not to interfere and live out as an NPC. After a boring entrance ceremony, Leon notes the Crown Prince Julius getting slapped by a girl named Marie, and realizes she's saying the same dialogue as the protagonist, even though she looks very different from her. Later, he heads to his dorm and wonders where he's seen this girl before, but is interrupted by Luxian, who just returned after the tour of the city. After boasting about his superiority compared to the current technology, he notices Leon reading a book on how to have a tea party. Days later, Leon asks his newly made friends Daniel and Raymond to help him with the tea party so they can attract women of lower status who will easily marry them. Just then, they notice some girls surrounding Julius, who is also holding a tea party, and admit they have a tough competition. Just then, Angelica approaches him and sternly asks if she is also invited, but Julius gives her a cold shoulder. When Ray shows up, he gently asks her to come to his tea party, which upsets Angelica. The guy then sternly reminds her that even though she's his fiancée, she has no right to meddle in his personal affairs. Leon recalls seeing this event in the game, but something is very different from what he had experienced prior. He once again turns to Marie and gently asks her to come, and his friend Joke is happy to see him pursuing someone that he actually likes. Marie happily accepts Julius's invitation, but Leon can't figure out why the game is playing out differently. Later, Master Lucas teaches Leon's class about tea party etiquette, and Leon is so bored that he dozes out. Lucas calls him out for being unattentive and gives him a private lesson, which suddenly turns him into a tea party enthusiast. Heading home, he holds a fancy tea party for a Baroness and Luxian, praises him for making all the right moves. However, his plan to score is ruined when the girl brings her ugly friends and a servant along without permission. She then explains she wants to go to Brad's tea party, but since they have some time before that, she thought she'd pay him a visit. After gobbling up everything on the table, the Baroness and her ugly friends leave with some mean comments, and Leon realizes he's still got a lot to learn from Master Lucas. Just then, he notices some girls bullying someone in the hall and realizes it's Olivia, the original protagonist of the game. Seeing her gather the torn pieces of the invite, he decides to try his luck and invites her over for another tea party. Olivia really enjoys everything he's done and compliments him, which is in contrast to what the Baroness and her friends did. He then asks if she often faces bullying, and Olivia says it's her own fault for coming to this school despite being a commoner. She really wants to learn magic but doesn't fit in with the rich and nobles, which is why she's been miserable. When Leon offers to take her to someone who can help, she smiles so brightly it almost blinds the guy. The person in question is Leon's older sister Jenna, who really doesn't like him, but helps only because she owes him money. She advises Olivia to buy snacks from a shop and gift it to the most popular girl in her class to get an invite. But Olivia comes from a poor background and doesn't have the money to afford them. Leon hesitantly offers to pay, and Olivia then brings some snacks to Angelica. At first, Angelica is uptight and stern, but soon realizes Olivia is a pure girl and asks who put her up to this. When Olivia says it was Leon's idea, they both bond over their mutual interest in him. During the exploration class, Leon grumbles about how both Daniel and Raymond ditched, leaving him alone to deal with the royal pain that is Julius' entourage. Just as the class is about to set off for their assignment, Leon catches sight of a heated exchange between Marie and Angelica. Before things can escalate further, Julius steps in to break it up, and Olivia explains that Marie is actually a daughter of a poor viscount, which is why she's getting bullied a lot. When people start gossiping about Marie, Julius immediately shuts them down and takes Marie into the dungeon with his squad, leaving Angelica in despair. Leon realizes that even though women hold power in this world, Julius and his squad are an exception to the norms. As the class continues, Olivia manages to find the crystal they were assigned to locate, but Leon keeps his distance from her because he doesn't want to end up marrying the original protagonist. The two then continue deeper into the dungeon where a swarm of giant ant monsters ambushes them. Leon, armed with a custom sword crafted by Luxian, makes quick work of the ants, slicing through every last one with ease. Just as he's catching his breath, a monkey-like creature suddenly leaps onto his arm, sinking its teeth into him. Without hesitation, Leon pulls out a dagger and ends the creature right then and there. Now injured, he barely has time to react before even more ants close in on them. Just when things start looking bad, the prince's entourage, along with Marie, arrives on the scene, followed by Angelica and her escorts. The entourage steps in to take care of the remaining ants, showing off their combat skills one after the other. After the fight, Angelica notices a wound on Julius' arm, but before she can say anything, Marie sneakily steps in and uses her healing magic on him. When Angelica tries to check on him, Julius completely ignores her and walks away with Marie at his side. Meanwhile, Olivia turns to Leon and notices his injury, wasting no time using her own healing magic to take care of his wound. She explains all she can do is healing magic, and it's thanks to him that she doesn't feel so useless here. Seeing the main character falling for an NPC like him, Leon can't figure out why the game is playing out differently than his own experience. A few days later, some girls burn Marie's belongings in a furnace, so Julius meets Angelica and asks if she knows who is responsible. She claims she has nothing to do with it, but Julius heard from the girls that she ordered them to do it. Despite her pleas, Julius refuses to believe her and tells her to stay away from Marie. Later, Leon is with Daniel and Raymond, who lament over the fact that the only two girls who ever treated them nicely are now engaged to some rich boys. They ask Leon if he's made any progress, but Leon is certain he's gonna die a virgin at this rate. The boys then talk about Julius scolding Angelica for bullying Marie, and Leon recalls experiencing a similar event in the game that was supposed to happen much later. He meets Olivia in the library and tells her about the bullying, and Olivia starts to think he has developed feelings for Marie. After Leon clears up the misunderstanding, Olivia says she saw Marie just yesterday when she was sitting alone in the courtyard. Olivia approached her to make sure she was okay, but Marie dropped the good girl act and told her she hates women like her. Just then, they hear someone behind the shelves and check it out, only to find Brad kissing Marie. Afterward, Marie walks down a hallway while relishing the fun she's having, and that the bullies have since regressed after Julius told them off. Just then, she runs into Julius and Joke in the halls, and they decide to give her a personal servant since they can't always watch over her. As she walks away with them, she realizes she's having a blast in this game world, which indicates she's not from here. Meanwhile, Angelica learns of this from her friends and realizes Julius has fallen for Marie, so she asks them to leave her alone. After they leave, she takes out her frustration on a flower pot and fails to understand why Julius doesn't love her even after everything she's done. Later, Leon is woken up by Jenna, who wants to inquire about Marie. All Leon knows is that she's a random girl who's getting cozy with Julius but has made some other friends in the process. They also talk about the bullying incident with Marie and conclude that Angelica might not have been involved in it. Jenna then strictly advises him not to get involved in this mess because Julius is going to take the throne and being on his good side will set him for life. After she leaves, Leon hits the bed again in disappointment, lamenting over not scoring any chick over the semester. Just then, Lucien shows up to put salt on his wound, but Leon asks him to fetch some information about Marie and Angelica. Later at a party, Julius asks Marie why she is in uniform, and she replies she didn't have the money to buy a dress. While the guy offers to buy her a dress, Angelica watches from a distance, wondering where it all went wrong. At the same time, Leon, Raymond, and Daniel vow to find girlfriends at the party, but they get rejected by everyone, one after the other. Meanwhile, Angelica confronts Julius in Turridge, but the prince refuses to listen to anything she has to say. Leon asks Olivia what the fuss is about, only to learn that Angelica saw Marie getting cozy with a man other than Julius. As it turns out, all of them are already aware of it, but they all love her so much that they are willing to do anything it takes to have her. After Julius declares his love for Marie, the K-pop fangirls in the crowd lose their minds, and Angelica realizes Marie is more than just a fling at the academy. As people start gossiping about their broken engagement, Angelica finally loses it and throws her glove at Marie, challenging her to a duel. Leon recalls the duel event in the game where the character who had the highest love points with the protagonist would fight in her place. As expected, Julius offers to be Marie's champion, and so does Joke, Greg, Chris, and Brad, who are the other members of the entourage. As Marie accepts the duel with a mischievous good girl act, her servant Kyle asks her not to rule him out. Meanwhile, Angelica awaits for another student to be her champion, but all the boys turn away because no one wants to go against the prince. Leon recalls from that game that if Angelica loses this duel, she will go into exile and marry a backcountry lord, leaving miserably ever after. Seeing her stand there helplessly, Leon starts walking to the front, and when his friends ask what he's doing, he expresses how much he hates the prince's entourage. Leon then openly vows to be Angelica's champion, and she accepts his proposal. Leon then recalls Lucien telling him that Marie is an outside such as himself, so he dictates the rules of the duel to his advantage. Angelica's demand for a win is that Marie stays away from the prince, and when Julius starts giving a monologue, Leon tells him to stop yapping and just state his demand. Murray then demands that Angelica stop being so cruel if she loses, making Leon realize she's memorized all the in-game dialogues. After the stakes are set, Leon suggests an armored duel in the arena, and the entourage agrees to a 5 versus 5 match. However, Leon is so confident that he decides to fight all 5 of them on his own, which leaves them a bit shaken. Accepting the terms of the duel, Julius warns Leon to be ready for what's ahead of him. But Leon throws the gauntlet down again and provokes him to pick it up. Later, Marie is in her room frustrated over Leon changing an in-game event and messing up her plan. Just then, Kyle arrives with breakfast and tells her to eat her veggies, but Murray is already getting fed up with him. When Leon returns to his room, he finds it completely trashed. Turns out, Daniel and Raymond were the culprits, though they were forced into it by their classmates. Luxian also reveals that bets are being placed on Leon's upcoming duel, and unsurprisingly, the odds are heavily stacked against him. Seeing an opportunity, Leon comes up with a plan and asks Luxian to prepare 500 platinum coins. Later, Angelica asks Leon to forfeit the duel because she doesn't want him to suffer because of her. She reveals she's already been reprimanded for challenging the prince to a duel, which means she's powerless and can't offer anything to him. Leon says he has no intention of currying a favor with her. He is just sick of getting rejected and wants to go out with a boon. Angelica jokingly says he has a screw loose, but Leon counters by reminding her that she was the one who challenged the prince to a duel. She once again asks him to step aside, but Leon tells her not to worry as he's stronger than he looks. On the day of the duel, Leon shows up in a sleek suit that Luxian prepared for him, looking sharper than usual. Before heading to the arena, Olivia stops him to give him some moral and oral support. Leon assumes she placed a bet on him, but Olivia says she doesn't believe in gambling. When he steps into the arena, he's immediately met with a sea of hostile faces, the crowd full of people eager to see him fail. However, his mood lightens when he notices that Daniel and Raymond actually bet on him. Then, his mech arrogance arrives on the battlefield, and the audience bursts into laughter, mocking its bulky and outdated design. But instead of reacting, Leon simply grins, knowing they have no idea what's coming. Olivia asks Angelica why the crowd is dissing Leon's choice of mech, and Olivia explains it's because it's a lost item that can't be replicated even with modern technology. But that doesn't mean it's strong. In contrast, the modern armors focus on speed, but even then, Angelica believes there's hope because Leon looks unfazed. As he hops into the mech, he asks Luxian why he's named it Arrogance, and he subtly hints it's because it rhymes with arrogance, which is Leon's most infuriating trait. At first, Leon goes up against Brad, who proved to be a very tough opponent when he was playing the game. As Brad starts boasting about his high-quality armor, Luxian notes that there is a drone-like weapon on its back, but Leon is already aware of it. He then asks Luxian to deploy his blade, but when he gets the shovel, he realizes he used it to dig the island and forgot to replace it. Brad, however, believes Leon is mocking him and vows to take him out in a single blow. As he leaps in and launches the weapon on his back, Leon easily dodges it and strikes him down in a single attack, leaving everyone in a state of shock. Leon himself is shocked as to why Brad lost so easily, and Luxian states Brad would have died if he hadn't held back. As Leon is declared the winner, no one cheers for him except for Master Lucas, which makes him really. Meanwhile, the crowd slowly starts to lose it, and Angelica, although confused, laughs hysterically because what else is she supposed to do? Julius finally realizes Leon was super cocky because of this lost item, and joke adds that armors so strong are non-existent at this time. Greg, however, is unfazed, calling Brad weak as he takes the stage to fight Leon. Luxian scans the armor and notes several repairs on it, which means that it has a lot of battle experience. As the battle starts, Greg starts attacking Leon rapidly, but the guy easily parries all of his strikes. He then recalls Greg being super arrogant due to his skill, to the point that he keeps using poor gear and weak armor. Because of that, Leon puts him down and starts dismantling his armor piece by piece. Instead of giving up, Greg gets out of his mech, arms himself with a metal rod, and decides to fight Leon by hand. However, Leon hits him with a fully blown diss track, which makes the guy lose his cool. In the end, the referees declare Leon the winner, and he's set to face the next guy in line. His opponent is Chris, who is a master swordsman, and since he has a cold personality, he always lets the sword do the talking in the game. Leon is well aware of his skill and backs off, deploying drones to attack Chris from a distance. Chris calls his methods disgraceful, but Leon is unfazed because he knows it's all well within the rules. As a last resort, Chris leaps towards Leon with his sword, but the guy breaks it with his bare hands, leaving Chris down and defeated. As Chris wonders why he lost, Leon takes it a step further and tells him to go cry to his mama, and even Luxian tells him to stop being so mean. His next opponent is Joke, who's already shaking in his boots, and sends Jenna to distract Olivia and Angelica. The two meet Leon in the halls and tell him to forfeit, because Jenna told them he's sick, when in reality, he's completely fine. As he returns to his mech, Lochin informs him that Jenna has rigged airguns with explosives on Joke's orders. A normal match would be destroyed by those explosives, but Lochin is confident airguns won't be affected at all. As the battle begins, Joke uses smoke grenades to block the view and flies up, aiming to take Leon down with a ray gun. However, when Leon appears unfazed, he uses a magic spell to activate the bombs on Aragon's back. Despite that, Leon comes out unscratched and starts attacking Joke, stating that he should let him fight the prince so he can game end him, which will then allow Joke to have a clear way to Marie's flat factory. However, Joke follows the broest before hose policy and threatens to wipe out his entire family if he harms the prince. Leon then accuses him of raiding his mech, but when Joke denies the accusation, he shows him the recording which causes Joke to attack him recklessly. Leon takes him down with a single strike, causing him to crash down in the arena. While Marie gets increasingly angry, Julius tells her not to worry as his armor is made from the kingdom's greatest tech. Even though she puts on a smile, she knows all of them are not as strong as they claim to be because they kept losing their battles in the game as well. As Julius steps on stage, everyone starts cheering for him, but Leon makes fun of them for having hope, even after he has defeated his entire entourage with ease. Before the battle, Julius shows respect to Leon for making it this far, and Leon asks him what he thinks of Olivia, because she is the original protagonist of the game. Leon says he doesn't know her enough to have an opinion, which further confirms that the game's plot has been messed with. As the match begins, Leon runs in and attacks Julius, but he parries and lands it back at him. The battle continues and Leon continues to talk smack at Julius, mocking him for chasing a 4-footed shawty who has the whole squad thirsting for her. Leon continues his TED talk and tells him why he doesn't accept Angelica, even when she's madly in love with him. But Julius claims she's just like all the other women at the palace who do not understand her. Apparently, he believes Marie is different from all those women, but Leon continues to mock his choice. Julius tries the talk no jutsu and asks him if he really enjoys berating people under the protection of his armor. And much to his surprise, Leon says it's the best thing in the world. He then asks Julius how it feels to be defeated by a commoner, and he replies he never wanted to be born into the royal family. However, Leon tells him he had it easy because he never had to worry about being sold or getting rejected by women. His speech resonates with the audience, but when Julius says he'll never let Marie go, Angelica moves to tears, realizing she's fighting an already lost battle. She thinks of giving up, but Olivia gets up and starts yapping in her annoying voice, which for some reason is heard by the entire arena. Despite the stupid monologue, Julius declares that what Angelica feels for him is not love, and real love is what he and Marie have between them. He then tells Leon to fight him until one of us is dead, and Leon calls him a hypocrite, because he knows he's a prince and Leon wouldn't dare hurt him with the intent to take his life. When Leon suggests fixing the match, Julius says that's against the rules, but Leon once again calls him a hypocrite, because the royal family often uses their power to break the rules. The crowd once again goes against Leon, and when Lochin asks why he's been a jerk, he says it's to make sure the future king has tough skin and he isn't fooled by a 4-foot blonde. As Julius rushes in for another attack, Leon restrains him and tells him that he could lose his right to the throne if he doesn't marry Angelica. However, Julius has become a tier 3 simp for Marie and is willing to throw away royalty for her. Hearing this, Leon finally loses it and attacks Julius for real, causing his entire armor to collapse into several pieces. Leon is then declared the winner, and Angelica vows to repay him later. Olivia then asks why he's so mean to everyone.
I'm not the bad guy they want, I'm the bad guy they need.
He also reveals he'll be leaving the academy, much to Olivia's shock. Later, Angelica visits Julius while he's recovering, and they finally talk about their relationship. She opens up about everything, but it's clear Julius only cares about Marie and nothing will change that. Accepting this, Angelica decides to let go and move on, but before leaving, she wishes him and Marie the best. Leon meets with Angelica's father, Vince, and her older brother, Gilbert, to have them clean up the mess he caused. Vince agrees, and Leon states that he'll give up his knight title and refuse the barony offer. When Gilbert asks why he helped Angelica, Leon says he did it for the kingdom, though the real reason is completely different. Vince finds his response amusing and decides to send Angelica to stay in the countryside so she can recover mentally. As Leon walks away, he feels satisfied with how things turned out, though he regrets not learning more about tea from Master Daniel and Raymond. On top of that, he's disappointed that he never got to try all the desserts in the academy cafeteria. Unbeknownst to him, his actions have earned him the respect of Vince and Gilbert. Later, Olivia and Angelica are on Leon's ship heading to his home, and the latter complains about the fact that her selfish desire got Leon kicked out of the academy. However, Olivia assures her that Leon intends to become the villain and leave the academy from the start. Angelica feels terrible that she ran to the prince but never thanked Leon properly, unaware that Leon and Lochin are eavesdropping on their conversation. Lochin suggests he comfort the lady, but Leon refuses because that isn't his cup of tea. At the Barford household, Balkis is working overtime to receive the guest, but is tense because not only did Leon pick a fight with the prince, but he also stole his former fiancée. Just then, Zola appears and starts asserting her authority, only to back off after learning that Angelica is the Duke's daughter. When Angelica speaks in favor of Leon, Zola gets scared for her life and runs off, leaving the guy with happy tears. Leon takes Olivia and Angelica on a tour of the surrounding land, which has been coming along quite nicely. Later, the two girls bathe together and have a heart-to-heart about Olivia's relationship with Leon. Angelica asks Olivia if she's dating Leon, but she says the guy is out of her reach. She believes Leon only has hots for Angelica, but she is too miserable to even think about it. Later, as the two bond, Leon joins them and Olivia asks him to call her Livia, while Angelica wants to be called Angie. The conversation then shifts to the topic of getting revenge on Marie, and Leon is completely on board. Livia also offers to help Angie with her plans, but then says the best way to take revenge is to be happy, because making others unhappy is a waste of time. Hearing this, even Olivia joins in, and seeing the protagonist and antagonist from the game become besties makes Leon feel proud of himself. Meanwhile, Marie learns that Julius and his entire entourage have been disinherited and lost their statuses. They are now free from their duties to love and protect her. But Marie only sees them as jobless rich kids now. As she cries at the loss of a luxurious life, the boys are so dense they believe she's shedding tears of joy. Back at the Barford household, a king's messenger informs them that their family will not be punished for what Leon did to Julius, but rather, the king is so impressed that he's increased Leon's ranking to the upper 6, much to Leon's frustration.
No! God, please, no! No!
Leon is eventually given his new title by the king and queen, which also means he has to stay at Holford Academy. Once there, Lucian tells him that Julius and his friends have been diving into dungeons to earn money and train so they can eventually defeat him. Before he can dwell on it too much, Livia and Angie show up and drag him along to check out a new Creek shop they found. A few days later, the academy is preparing for a festival and Leon is directing his friends to set up a tea party, hoping it'll get him a chick. Just then, Olivia shows up in a maid costume, nervously asking how she looks, and Leon says she looks great. Angelica shows up right after in the same costume, complaining her monstrous chug jugs feel suffocated in this dress. She and Olivia start blazing each other, and Leon cries tears of joy imagining himself getting a 2-for-1 special with them. In reality, he can't date any of them because he is just an NPC character. As the simping continues, Daniel and Raymond are surprised to learn the girls from their academy can be so gentle. Just then, Jenna barges into the room and starts being a prick, and they comment this is how the girls in their academy usually act. After Jenna is served tea, she hesitantly reveals she and her friend fought over who gets to clap the Viscount's hair. Turns out, her friend had an eye on the guy for quite some time, but Jenna played dirty and stole the guy from her. Now she wants Leon to threaten her friend to back off, but when Olivia tells her she mustn't do that, Jenna tells her to keep her mouth shut. Leon sternly tells her that he won't help her, and if she ever so looks at Olivia weird, she will have to deal with Angelica. Jenna then leaves after calling him a loser, and Olivia thanks him with a gentle smile, which bricks him up. Just then, the boys bring news of a commotion next door, and they notice a crowd of girls surrounding Julius, who has decided to open a cafe right next to theirs. Julius then approaches Leon and mockingly invites him to his cafe, but Olivia is shocked to see that they're charging 100 DEF for tea and sweets. Julius says the prices were set by Murray and walks off, but Leon follows him in to see what they're cooking. He is shocked to see they've set it like a host club, and Chris and Brad are confident they'll beat Leon this time for sure. As the two argue, Olivia notes that this place is more like a bar, and they're charging a lot for just a cup of tea. Mary finally shows up and explains it's a fair price, because former royalties will be serving in this cafe. After a brief argument between Leon and Marie, the latter asserts that their cafe will attract all the customers so Leon and her gang are free to work here as part-timers to make a quick buck. Later, Olivia holds up a sign to invite customers to a cafe, but runs into some girls who hate Leon and start bullying her for that reason. After they leave, a girl happily introduces herself as Carla and shows interest in attending their cafe. The next day, Leon hypes up his staff to do their best, and while Angelica is reassuring Olivia, she is called to the executive office. Soon after, she finds herself arm in arm with Mylene, the Queen of Holford Kingdom, who is close to Angelica and wants her to show her around the festival. Angelica thanks her for helping her stay at the academy, because she's loving it here, and Mylene assumes it's because she's getting backshots from Leon. She then expresses her wish to see Leon, stating she wants to talk to him about the duel, but Angelica says it's her fault too. However, Mylene apologizes to Angelica because her son caused her so much pain, and even admits Julius was fooled by Marie into doing her bidding. Meanwhile, as Leon and his staff helplessly watch Marie's cafe steal all the spotlight, a group of troublemakers show up at their cafe and ask to be served. When Mylene arrives, she is excited to see what Liam is cooking, but is shocked to see his customer throwing tea in his face and then stepping on his head to show disrespect. Turns out she is just one of those girls who betted against Leon in the duel and lost a lot of her money, so she's humiliating him to make up for it. Angelica steps in and pushes her away, but then realizes the girl is Count Offrey's daughter Stephanie from a rival family. When Olivia asks her to leave, she tells her not to jump to Angelica's defense because before she was pumped and dumped by Julius, she used to say that commoners were just numbers. This comment breaks Olvia's heart because she also is a commoner. As Stephanie continues smack-talking, Leon tells her to shut up only to get slapped by her servants. When Mylene tells her to pay and leave, she does not recognize her and calls her an old hag. She then instructs her servants to throw Mylene out, but Leon starts smirking because he finally has a reason to beat them up. He then starts throwing lefts and rights at the servants, and after knocking them out, he introduces Mylene as the Queen of Holford. Mylene tells her to keep it down because she's going incognito, but the guy is enjoying being a villain so much that they have to call the only person he respects to turn him into an obedient puppy. After Lucas leaves to make them tea, Mylene expresses her anger towards Leon, causing him to bow down and beg for mercy. Mylene gets nervous because she had intentions to harm him and asks Angelica to help her, only to realize Leon is making fun of her. She then reveals she is sorry for what her son did, but also criticizes Leon's cheap way of handling the matter. As Leon is mesmerized by her beauty, she reveals he's made a lot of enemies in the palace and advises him to be careful. After that matter is resolved, she starts blushing and asks Leon to show him around the academy so she can make more memories. Leon gently grabs her hand and offers to give her a memory that'll make her walk side to side for a week, only for the girls to remind her that she's the queen. However, Leon would rather tap a beautiful woman in her 30s than get in bed with the freakish girls in the academy. As he continues to rizz up the queen, he suddenly feels a smack on his head and turns around to see the queen's son Julius. As he starts yelling, Mylene latches onto Leon and tells Julius to calm down, but that makes him even angrier. He then puts Leon where he belongs and takes his mother to Marie's cafe, where he sternly asks her to stay away from Leon because he is disgraceful and greedy. Mylene then looks at the state of the cafe and learns that Marie was responsible for it. When she asks to see her, Julius refuses, fearing she'll insult her, but Mylene starts berating them all for charging a 100 dea for a simple tea and snacks. On top of that, he's also breaking their promise of staying away from Marie after losing the duel, so in her eyes, the one who is greedy and disgraceful is his own son. Meanwhile, Leon is still lamenting over losing the queen but realizes it was quite a ballsy move to begin with. Just then, Carla enters the room and introduces herself to Leon. When he asks why she's here, she gets on her knees and asks Leon to save her family. After the festival settles down, Leon is in his room when Lucien asks if he plans to help Carla with her request. Leon says he will, but mostly because Livia got involved in setting up the meeting, and saying no will make her lose face. Meanwhile, Daniel and Raymond notice the tension between Livia and Angie after Stephanie's comments about Livia's stance with the commoners. Despite this, Leon stays focused on business and reassures them that even though their cafe is struggling, they'll make a fortune on the festival's final day. As the festival nears its end, people gather around the notice board to see a bike race poster, and Angelica tells Olivia that she is organizing the event. She believes Joke is the top contender to win the race, and when Olivia asks if Leon would participate or not, they both agree he might bet on the race instead. Marie is also interested in the prize money, but when Kyle suggests she gamble, she refuses, revealing that her ex-boyfriend from her past life had serious gambling debts. She insists on earning money honestly, and though Kyle doesn't agree, he agrees to help. As the race begins, Leon wins a huge amount of gambling money thanks to Lucien, which makes Livia and Angie uneasy, thinking it might bring bad luck. During the race, Joke is attacked by some racers and Olivia is naturally worried for him because she was supposed to end up as his girlfriend in the original game. Angelica notices that the attackers are working for Clarice, a female student out for revenge. Joke manages to win but suffers a broken bone, leaving him unable to race again. Later, as Marie cries over losing her ace, Clarice and her group show up, and she makes it clear that she wanted to ensure Joke couldn't race anymore as payback for how he pumped and dumped her. Leon then recalls Clarice being an honorable girl in the game but likes her baddie side, which earns him a light scolding from Olivia. Angelica then calls Clarice out for being a cheat, but she ignores her and tells Joke that she won't forgive him that easily. Joke accepts this as his punishment, but warns that if Marie is harmed, Clarice will pay the price. Marie tries to reason with Clarice, but she gets shut down immediately. Leon watches and thinks Marie's behavior reminds him of his sister from his previous life. Once Clarice and her group leave, Angie points out that they need a substitute racer. Marie bluntly suggests Leon, definitely not for the prize money, but because a first-year student must participate. Leon first refuses, which causes the girls to question Angelica's organization. Since Leon still owes a favor to her father and brother, he agrees to race. At the stadium, Leon jokes with Luxian about being Angie's follower, until a gut named Dan shows up to tell her that whatever happens in the race is not personal. When Leon asks if Clarice threatened him, Dan mentions that she was a super kind person before Joke dumped her. Since they both dislike pretty boys, Leon jokingly asks if he can be spared. But Dan quickly rejects the idea, saying his lady's orders are final. After Dan leaves, Luxian informs Leon that his bike modifications are ready. Leon, excited to see everyone's reaction when he wins big, looks forward to the race. As soon as the race begins, the other racers gang up on Leon, and even the commentator cheers for them since so many people went broke because of him. Watching from the VIP section, Angie and Livia grow anxious seeing him get attacked. Stephanie shows up and starts mocking Leon, calling him Angie's follower, which Angie denies. The argument is about to escalate to a proper fight until Livia steps in to calm things down. However, Stephanie ships her insults to Livia, calling her a commoner and reminding Angie how she used to look down on commoners. This upsets Livia, who runs off, leaving Angie standing there feeling guilty. Seizing the moment, Stephanie keeps taunting Angie until Angie finally snaps and slaps her, starting a full-on fight. Back on the track, Leon activates the boosters Luxian installed, wiping out most of his opponents until only Dan is left. In the final stretch, Leon speeds ahead, but the bike is moving so fast it terrifies him. Despite this, he wins the race, only for his bike to explode right after crossing the finish line. As he falls through the air, Dan catches him at the last second and casually tells him not to worry about it, since they both hate pretty boys, which Leon finds hilarious. Later, he enjoys his winnings, especially since Joke now owes him a favor. As payback, Joke is forced to apologize to Clarice for dumping her so harshly. As a result, Clarice smacks him with a heavy heart and cuts all ties with him. As tea is served, Dan thanks Leon on Clarice's behalf, but he says it's fine because he doesn't like Joke either. Leon then gives Clarice some encouraging words which warms her heart before leaving to check on Angie and Livia. He finds Livia sitting alone on a courtyard bench and sits beside her. He brings up what he heard from Angie, and Livia says she doesn't know if she and Livia can be friends. Leon bluntly tells her that it will be difficult since they both have very different backgrounds, and Livia starts crying because she thinks she lost the only friend she made. However, Leon reassures her that since Angie lost most of her followers after the duel, the two of them will be fine together. Though his words are blunt, Livia takes them seriously and decides to talk to Angie again. Later, just as Livia is about to visit Angie, Carla unexpectedly shows up, leading to yet another unexpected encounter. Carla approaches her, asking if she can help set up a meeting with Leon, but Livia hesitates, trying to find a way to say no without causing problems. But before she can, Stephanie appears behind her and shuts down any chance of refusal. She doesn't just pressure Livia, she straight up threatens her, throwing in insults and making it clear she has no choice. To make things worse, she disrespects Angie and makes it clear to Carla that disobeying her would ruin her entire family. Livia tries to stand up for Leon and Angie, but Stephanie yanks her by the hair and starts yapping nonsense about both Angie and Leon. After tearing Livia down with her words, she coldly says Livia needs to be punished. The next day, Leon is talking with Luxian about the Sky Pirates that Carla wants him to take care of, saying she asked him because of his past achievements. He also mentions that the pirates have one of the 3 holy relics, which is necessary for the protagonist to awaken her saint powers. These relics are the holy bracelet hidden in the palace, the holy necklace that the Sky Pirates possess, and a holy staff that is watched over by the kingdom's temple. Normally, this event wouldn't happen for another 2.5 years, but thanks to Stephanie's interference, everything is happening way earlier. Her jealousy toward Livia is obvious, and when Luxian asks why she's like this, Leon states she hates seeing a commoner rise in status. Leon also suspects that his own actions in the past must have pissed her off. Luxian questions whether Leon is focusing too much on following the game's events, since there's not much for him to gain here. But Leon brushes it off, saying he's just a mob character trying to avoid unnecessary trouble. Luxian suggests letting Livia handle the pirate problem, but Leon refuses, knowing she's not in the right headspace for something like this. Luxian then jokes that Leon is acting like Livia's love interest, but Leon immediately shuts that down, insisting he's just a mob. Internally, Luxian notes that Leon's overprotectiveness is actually holding Livia back from growing stronger on her own.
How do you expect me to grow if you won't let me blow?
Leon asks if their ship, the Partner, is ready at the docks, and Luxian confirms it. When Carla and Livia arrive, Leon notices that Livia is carrying luggage, and when she realizes he sees it, she tries to hide it. But it's too late and Leon already figures out that she must have failed to make up with Angie. Carla then tells him she brought 2 more people along to help with the mission, who happen to be Brad and Greg. On board the ship, Leon talks with Brad and Greg, quickly learning that Brad was once engaged to Carla. Brad explains that he's planning to use the bounties from the pirates to help Marie, while Greg is also joined for the same reason, hoping to steal an armored vessel from the pirates to assist her. Their different motivations lead to an argument, which Carla has to step in and break up before it escalates, all while Livia sits there in silence. Back at the academy, Angie had been planning to bring Livia a gift as a peace offering, but when she reaches Livia's dorm, she finds the door vandalized. As she knocks on the door, Stephanie and her 2 followers approach, smugly implying that Angie is there to check up on her pet, since Livia is off fighting pirates. It doesn't take Angie long to put 2 and 2 together and figure out that Stephanie is behind this whole mess. Losing her patience, she grabs Stephanie by the collar and warns her that if anything happens to Livia, there will be consequences. Leaving Stephanie stunned, Angie walks away, determined to warn Leon and growing more worried about Livia. Meanwhile, Julius is speaking with his mother, Malene, about Leon's current pirate hunt with Greg and Brad. Malene gets moist thinking of Leon, but refuses to let Julius interfere, telling him that he still isn't mature enough to handle the affairs of the kingdom. On the ship, Leon completely wipes the floor with Brad and Greg in a card game, using some underhanded tricks to clean them out of their money in exchange for letting them stay on board. Their conversation shifts to Stephanie, specifically how she became Brad's fiancé and her awful reputation. He also reveals how he was pressured into getting engaged with her, but her attitude and lack of interest pushed him away. Before they can dwell on it too much, Luxon interrupts, warning Leon about 2 incoming pirate ships. Leon tries to rally the boys, but since Brad and Greg have no idea what's coming, he decides to handle it himself. When the pirates attack using 4 armored mechs, Leon jumps into arrogance and meets them head-on. The pirate captain initially mocks his mech, calling it an outdated model, but his confidence shatters when Leon easily wipes out the Vanguard team. Watching from the sidelines, Brad and Greg are in complete shock as they witness real combat for the first time. When the pirates try to run, Leon launches missiles that obliterate their barriers, forcing them to surrender. Once the pirates are captured and restrained on deck, Brad starts reflecting on what he just saw, realizing how naive he was to think war was some kind of grand adventure. Inside the cockpit, Luxon asks Leon why he didn't just finish off the pirates, and Leon admits that while he doesn't mind fighting, he's not the type to game end people in cold blood. Meanwhile, Carla is struggling to get in contact with the pirates, hoping to pin the blame on Livia to protect her own reputation in front of Bartford. Later, the group suddenly finds themselves held at gunpoint by an armed force. But before things get out of hand, the situation is resolved by Carla's father, Wayne. Brad quickly steps up and explains that Carla had asked them for help dealing with the pirates, but instead of owning up to it, Carla tries to shift the blame onto Livia, who is too timid to defend herself. Seeing this, Leon steps in for Livia and exposes the truth, revealing Carla's genuine involvement and demanding payment for their work. Wayne furiously asks Carla to explain herself, but all she can do at this point is cry crocodile tears. Afterward, aboard the ship, Luxon talks with Leon about everything that happened. They are surprised that Carla admitted everything and even outed Stephanie. Leon notes that while they defeated the pirates, the main fleet is still out there, and they haven't secured the Holy Necklace yet. However, Luxon suggests tending to another issue at hand. Heeding its advice, Leon meets with Livia, who stops him from getting closer and asks why he's been so kind to her even when she's just a commoner. She wonders if he's trying to clap her, but when Leon says no,
Come on, man.
she starts to think she's not cute enough for him. She then goes through a proper breakdown, thinking that Leon and Angie only see her as a pet because there is no other reason for them to be nice to her. While standing on the ship's deck, Leon reflects on everything Livia told him, talking it over with Luxon. Luxon bluntly points out that Leon is the reason Livia is turning into a Pookie. Leon brushes it off, saying it was bound to happen since he got involved with both the protagonist and antagonist. But Luxon doesn't let up, arguing that Leon keeps stepping in and making things easier for Livia, which is exactly the problem. Annoyed by Luxon's cold analysis, Leon loses his temper and punches him. As he cools off, Brad arrives on deck and starts practicing his swordplay, determined to one day surpass Leon. Watching him, Leon casually points out that he should focus on magic instead, since that's his real strength, because he has no chance of beating Leon in a sword fight. Brad refuses to back down, admitting that while he's the weakest member of the prince's entourage, he takes pride in being the most handsome. This leads to a brief argument between the two, which quickly escalates into a duel thanks to Luxian's intervention. During the fight, Leon realizes just how far the prince's group is willing to go to win Marie's affection, while he, on the other hand, treats Livia as a side chick. Leon then defeats Brad in a single hit, but Brad says he is confident he'll defeat him next time before waking off. Meanwhile, Marie and Kyle are being chased by a giant rat inside a dungeon, and they came here to steal one of the holy relics before the protagonist. The following day, Julius suggests sneaking out of the castle to join Brad and Greg, and Joke agrees with the plan. Julius then uses the last active brain cell in his body to determine whether they should wear disguises. They take the request for 2 clocks and 2 masks to the queen and hide them as costumes for entertainment purposes, but Mylene sees through the BS and turns them down. While having lunch with Brad and Greg, Leon goes over the plan to take out the remaining sky pirates and get the holy necklace. Before they can get far into the discussion, the pirates ambush them from behind. Brad and Greg immediately beg Leon to let them fight, and even though he refuses at first, he lets them do what they want after seeing their sincerity. Meanwhile, inside her cabin, Livia reflects on her conversation with Leon, regretting saying all those things to him when he's only been kind to her. Just then, she hears gunfire outside and sees the pirates attacking the ship. Rushing to the deck, she's briefly stopped by 2 worker bots, but her desperate plea somehow makes them obey, allowing her through. As soon as she arrives, an armored pirate confronts her, but Brad jumps in, saving her from being captured. However, he quickly finds himself overwhelmed by the pirate. Out on the battlefield, Leon struggles, realizing that capturing all the pirates alive is much harder than expected. Luxian alerts him that the pirate leader is on the deck, and when Leon looks over, he sees Brad and Greg protecting Livia. He acknowledges that this is how things played out in the original game, but his pride won't let him just stand by. Calling for his weapon number 3, an axe unfolds from Aragon's backpack, and he charges at the pirate leader. Without much trouble, he beats the pirate to a pulp until he begs for mercy, and the battle ends with him obtaining the necklace. Meanwhile, Livia tends to Brad's injuries, and as she heals them, he talks about how Marie has the same powers before passing out. Just then, Leon approaches her and expresses his relief, seeing the game falling back to its original storyline where Olivia is the main character. He then compliments Greg and tells him that Olivia healed Brad's injuries, but after they carry him inside, she starts crying because Leon refuses to call her Livia, even when she asked him to. Meanwhile, Leon now possesses all of the pirates' treasure, but when Luxian suggests asking the royal palace for a reward, Leon says he'd much prefer taking Stephanie down. Luxian then pulls out some documents that prove that she was in cahoots with the pirates, much to his amusement. When asked what he will do with his fame and money, Leon decides to build a harem of baddies for some soul-snatching sloppy toppies, but Luxian suggests he steps down and let Olivia be the MC. Leon then sees a Redgrave airship headed their way and decides to let Angelica's family handle the rest of it. Later, Brad and Greg are offered a large sum of money but refuse to accept it because Leon was the one who defeated the pirates. However, they learn that Leon gave them all the credit, and because of his statement, their families are considering giving them their titles back. On the ship, Luxian asks Leon if he's sure about it, and Leon replies it's best if those two regain their power so they can protect Olivia better. Speaking of Olivia, Luxian reminds her that Angelica is upset with him and even slaps him because he made Olivia cry. Leon, however, says it's best for him to keep his distance from the girls, and they are left wondering if things will ever be the same. Meanwhile, Greg and Brad ask to see the queen because they want to return the favor to Leon. Turns out they've asked her to promote Leon to the lower 5th rank, much to his despair. To make matters worse, Clarice's father has gifted him an air bike and has recommended that he get promoted to the upper 5th rank after graduation, ruining his plans of living an NPC life. Outside of Holford Academy, Leon and Luxian check out the new air bike Leon received from Clarice, which is far advanced than his previous bike. Leon happily embraces it like a long-lost friend, but Luxian quickly declares that he will be modifying it right away. Later that day, Leon sits on a bench in the courtyard, looking downcast as Raymond and Daniel try to cheer him up. Even though his chances of getting a sloppy toppy are higher now, he knows that it would only be because of his status rather than his 6-inch Willie Smith. As they talk about the upcoming festival, Leon recalls that in the original game, it was a chance for the protagonist to get a shawty on his ding-dong. Leon chooses the floating southern island where Chris is located, though his real goal is an item hidden there. Since Angie and Livia will be there too, Brad and Daniel think he should take the opportunity to make amends with both of them. That night, aboard a luxury passenger ship, Leon and Luxian briefly go over their plans for when they arrive. As they talk, they spot Angie and Livia on the ship and also notice a woman named Deirdre boasting loudly to her group. Chris is also there, surrounded by all the pick-me girls, which annoys Leon as he wants Chris to follow the story and clap Livia. Meanwhile, down in the engine room, Angie's former groupies secretly take orders from someone and throw out a pair of smoking sticks from one of the windows. When the ship reaches its destination, Livia feels lonely and lost and wishes she had Angie and Leon with her. As she walks up to the temple, she eventually runs into both of them, who just happen to come at the same time. A shrine maiden welcomes them and explains that the shrine is meant for marriage, and Leon recalls this is the place where MC and her romantic interest visit the shrine together. She then suggests that Leon, Livia, and Angie make an offering and pray. As they make a wish, Leon loudly asks for a chick with giant mommy milkers, which annoys Angie. He then sees the girls praying in hopes they find someone who loves and respects them. Afterward, the shrine maiden gives them charms as a gift. Unbeknownst to the others, this is the item Leon has been searching for and the main reason he worked so hard to come here. When they open their packets, Livia receives a blue charm, Angie gets a red charm, and Leon obtains a special one called the Battle Charm, which enhances close combat abilities and boosts physical strength. Seeing their reactions, the shrine maiden assumes they all prayed for their friendship, though their expressions suggest otherwise. The next day, as the ship leaves the island, Luchin casually mentions that Leon only wanted the battle charm so he could get the holy bracelet from a dungeon, where Marie is also likely heading for the same reason. Leah, on the other hand, hopes that Marie is playing the game well enough to avoid leading them into a war. Meanwhile, on another ship, a red-eyed woman quietly remarks that the time has almost come. Back on the deck, Chris approaches Leon and suggests they have a sword duel, which leads to a heated discussion about Chris' sword skills. Before they can act on it, alarms suddenly blare as a massive swarm of monsters appears on the horizon. Leon immediately notices the crest on them and realizes they belong to the Principality of Phanos, a faction that declared independence and is supposed to attack much later in the game. Just as he is about to order Luchin to prepare for battle, a massive monster ship emerges and Angie and Livia rush to his side. Standing on the enemy ship, the red-eyed woman is revealed to be Princess Gertrude, whom Angie immediately recognizes. Through a projected message, Gertrude announces that the Phanos Kingdom is declaring war on Holford and orders everyone on the ship to surrender. While Angie is shaken by the sudden turn of events, Leon can't help but wonder where things went wrong and what could have triggered this situation. Surrounded by Phanos soldiers, the ship's occupants are gathered on the deck as a man named Gelat steps forward and introduces himself. He coldly divides the nobles into two groups, stating that those ranked Baron and above will be taken as hostages, while the rest are of no interest to them. Before anyone else can speak, Angie steps forward, giving her name and demanding that she be the only hostage taken while the others are left alone. Gelat is amused by her bravery and agrees to the deal. Leon instinctively wants to intervene, but before he can, two students hold him back. As punishment for his defiance, Gelat orders those same students to beat Leon, and though they hesitate, they have no choice but to obey. Angie pleads for Gelat to stop, but he refuses and forces her to board the enemy ship. After he's knocked out, Angie finds herself in a room with Gertrude and Gelat. She tries to question Gertrude about her reasons for starting a war with Holford, but is met with a cold and indifferent response. She also reflects on how, in the moment she was taken, only two students had the courage to stand up for her. Meanwhile, back on the passenger ship, Leon is locked up, and Livia stays by his side, distraught that she was unable to protect Angie and completely helpless in this situation. Just then, Chris enters and informs them that Angie is the only one taken, while the rest of them will be executed in an hour. He begs Leon for help, but Leon, still angry at how their peers refuse to stand up for Angie, refuses. Seeing no way to convince him, Chris turns to leave, but Leon stops him, clarifying that if he is going to fight against Phanos, he wants everyone else to be involved as well. Determined, Chris goes to plead with the students, urging them to rise up and fight, but his words fall on deaf ears as they outright reject him. As frustration grows, a gunshot suddenly echoes through the air. Leon steps forward with Livia at his side, holding a shotgun. He gives a speech, calling out the so-called nobles for being nothing more than wannabe nobles, striking a nerve with Deirdre. This sparks an argument between them, with Leon openly criticizing how these nobles rely on their ancestors' success rather than their own efforts. His words ignite something in the group, and before long, the students are riled up and ready to fight their captors with their magical capabilities. Deirdre, despite her earlier anger, finds herself unexpectedly infatuated with Leon's boldness. Inside the ship's hangar, Leon prepares to leave when he learns about the girls who informed the enemy through smoke bombs. He decides to let the Duke handle them, and Livia begs him to bring Angie back before he leaves. Meanwhile, on the enemy ship, Gertrude begins playing a magical flute, and outside, the monsters under her control begin to move. Luchin tells Leon that Angie is being held inside the enemy ship, and Leon immediately realizes that the enemy has a magical flute capable of controlling monsters. As they push through the enemy ranks, breaking their formation to create a path to the ship, Chris pilots his armor craft and wonders if he will ever be able to match Leon in combat. Meanwhile, he coordinates a group of male students piloting their own armor to hold off the invading monsters and protect the ship from further danger. Outside the ship, Deirdre organizes the remaining students, ensuring they maintain a defensive barrier while casting spells to keep the monsters at bay. On the enemy ship, Gertrude is alerted to Leon's arrival and quickly plays the magical flute again, commanding the monsters to intensify their attack on the students' ship. As she belittles the students for their resistance, Angie refuses to stay silent and instead speaks of their defense, praising Leon as their strongest fighter. Gelat, unfazed by the resistance, remains confident that their ship's cannons will soon obliterate the students' vessel, leaving them with no chance of survival. Lucian is surprised at the students' ability to hold their ground, but explains that their resilience comes from their adventurer heritage, as many of them dream of marrying good wives who give soul-snatching sloppy toppies after graduation. Back on the students' ship, Deirdre unleashes her magic on the attacking monsters while Livia heals an injured crew member. Suddenly, an enemy ship fires its cannon and soon, others begin to lock onto their target. As a barrage of attacks rains down upon them, Livia finds the courage to cast a powerful protective barrier, shielding the entire ship from the gunfire. Drawing on her magic, she launches a series of missiles that take down several monsters, creating an opening for Leon to storm the enemy vessel through its monstrous mouth. Watching from the enemy ship, Gelat scoffs at Leon's reckless charge, dismissing it as a foolish act of defiance. However, within moments, Leon storms inside, takes out several enemy soldiers, and knocks Gelat unconscious before aiming his shotgun at Gertrude, demanding that she surrender. She appears intrigued by his skill and determination and asks for his name, but instead of answering, Leon swiftly shoots a maid standing nearby and scolds Gertrude for trying to buy time. As he holds up what he believes to be the magical flute, he is quickly corrected by Lucian, who informs him that it is a fake and that the real flute is still with the maid. Before Gertrude can react, Lucian humiliates Gelat by shaving off his mustache, and with Gertrude restrained, Leon wastes no time escaping on his airbike, with both Angie and Gertrude in tow, knowing that the monster holding the enemy ship in place has been defeated. Meanwhile, Gelat regroups on another ship, preparing for a counterattack. Back on the student's ship, Leon immediately notices Livia's exhaustion, but before he can properly respond, Chris approaches and asks what their next move should be now that the monsters have stopped their attack. Before Leon can answer, Gelat's voice echoes through the air, announcing that Gertrude has chosen to sacrifice herself for the principality, and orders his forces to launch an all-out assault. Accepting her fate, Gertrude uses the real magical flute to unleash a powerful wave of magic, commanding the remaining monsters to surround and attack the student's ship. Realizing that Livia is too drained to cast another barrier, Leon quickly jumps onto his airbike and speeds toward the monsters, determined to keep them from reaching the ship. And she watches him go, frustration and worry mixing inside her as she questions what she can do to help. Just then, her charm begins to glow, and fiery lances appear around her, which she instinctively launches to assist Leon in battle. However, as she continues her attacks, she notices Livia looking utterly dejected. Concerned, Angie rushes to her side and listens as Livia admits that she feels like a burden, believing she has only held both Leon and Angie back. She confesses that all she ever wanted was for them to acknowledge her and see her as their equal. Hearing this, Angie is taken aback, but instead of hesitating, she reassures Livia that she will give her all the recognition she desires. Without a second thought, she pulls Livia into a tight embrace, and the unexpected affection causes Livia to break down in tears. However, before they can share a proper moment, the ship suddenly shakes as enemy cannon fire hits it, sending Angie stumbling overboard. She barely manages to grab onto the ship's edge, hanging on for dear life as she reflects on her regrets. Resigned to her fate, she prepares to let go, but before she can, Livia reaches out and saves her. As they share a heartfelt conversation, another cannon blast strikes the ship, throwing Angie back onto the deck while sending Livia plummeting toward the ocean below. Just as she is about to hit the water, Leon swoops in on his airbike, catching her at the last second. Instead of thanking him, Livia scolds him for calling her Olivia instead of her preferred nickname, which leads to a playful yet heartfelt moment between them. Their conversation shifts to a serious tone when she confesses her love for him, but Leon says he has a small PP and she should find a better guy. Despite that, Livia stands her ground, making it clear that no matter how inadequate he might feel, she still cares deeply for him. Hearing this, Leon finally calls her Livia, and the happiness on her face is undeniable as they make their way back to the ship. As soon as they land on the deck, Livia and Angie rush to embrace each other while Leon watches like a third wheel. Just then, his massive warship, the Partner, arrives, immediately launching an assault on the enemy fleet. At the same time, the Arrogance descends onto the deck, and Leon boards it, ready to take down the enemies once and for all. Leon skillfully maneuvers the Arrogance through the battlefield, avoiding enemy attacks with ease while giving orders to the partner to deploy rescue ships for his fellow students. As Chris and Deirdre work together to coordinate the evacuation, Leon notices a lone black mech standing atop the enemy's lead ship. Wielding a sword, the mech suddenly launches toward him, and Leon poops his pants when he realizes that this must be the infamous Black Knight. Aboard one of the rescue ships, Gertrude calls out to the Black Knight by his real name, Vandal, questioning why he has been deployed. Meanwhile, Livia, who is unfamiliar with the Black Knight's history, listens as Angie explains everything to her, that Vandal is a fierce mech responsible for taking out hundreds of mechs all by himself. Back in the battle, Leon deploys drones to attack Vandal, but the Black Knight effortlessly cuts them down before turning his attention to Leon. Realizing how much trouble this opponent is causing, Leon decides to stow his sword and rifle, preparing to fight with his bare hands. At that moment, an enemy soldier makes an attempt on Leon's life, but he quickly eliminates the threat, only for Vandal to take advantage of the distraction and slice open the front of his armor, exposing his stomach. With his video feed transmission lost, Leon is forced to rely on the opening in his armor to visually track his opponent. Luxian warns him that Aragon's performance has dropped by 30% and that the strain is growing worse, suggesting that they withdraw. However, Leon refuses to retreat and also rejects the idea of using the partner's weaponry to eliminate Vandal. Instead, he continues his struggle and listens as Vandal speaks of his duty as a knight of the principality, explaining that honor compels him to fight. Seizing an opportunity, Vandal uses a flash bomb before plunging his sword into Aragon's, but Leon takes advantage of the distraction, grabs his shotgun, and ejects from his mech, leaving it on autopilot as it latches onto Vandal's mech. Vandal, now at Leon's mercy, demands to be eliminated instead of surrendering, but Leon refuses because he's on his pacifist arc. Luxian then arrives with handcuffs and informs Leon that the partner has secured the surrounding area. At that moment, Gillette fires a special signal flare, and Gertrude immediately recognizes it as something far more dangerous than the power of her magical flute. A massive swarm of monsters appears, but Leon orders Lucian to wipe them out, and in an instant, a barrage of laser beams annihilates the creatures. With victory in sight, Leon declares that Vandal is finished, stating that losing to a civilian ship full of students has made him lose all aura, so much so that he should consider retirement. As a final act of triumph, he takes Vandal's sword as a war trophy. As dusk settles, the enemy ships are towed away, and Gillette grovels at Leon's feet, begging for mercy. Leon, however, coldly informs him that he will be taking any functioning armors and ships for himself, while any non-mobile ones will be salvaged for scrap. Gillette tries to negotiate, but Leon dismisses him, stating that the victor must be compensated for his war efforts. Later in the ship's hangar, Luxian questions why Leon refused to let him handle the Black Knight. In response, Leon reminds him that he would have vaporized Vandal in an instant, which would have caused the Principality and Holford to view him as a major threat. If that were to happen, such a situation would be extremely inconvenient for someone like him who wants to remain a mob character. That night, when Leon tries to enter his room, he finds that Livia and Angie have taken it over, having fallen asleep inside. While he admits that seeing them in this state makes him want a goon, he also wishes they had warned him beforehand. Luxian then reveals that the two had been waiting for him but grew too tired. As Leon stands there contemplating his next move, Chris approaches, and for a moment, Leon assumes he is about to challenge him to another duel. However, Chris surprises him by stating that he sees Leon as his idol and vows to one day catch up to him. Watching Chris walk away, Leon smirks and decides that, just like with the Sky Pirates, he will let Chris take credit for the victory over the Black Knight. Back at the Redgrave household, Angie's brother Gilbert informs her that Gertrude is to study abroad as a punishment. Angie, however, finds the sentence too lenient. Changing the subject, Gilbert brings up Leon's romantic life, which Angie immediately dismisses, stating that he's gonna die a virgin at this rate. Gilbert finds this strange, noting that someone who has achieved so much in such a short time should have women lining up on his North Pole. At Holford Academy, Leon enjoys a tea party with Livia and Angie, discussing how he made Chris take credit for defeating the Black Knight, a move that will help Chris regain his family's acceptance. Livia and Angie praise Leon for his generosity, and their conversation shifts to Luxian, whom Leon properly introduces. As Luxian explains his background and purpose, the two girls become fascinated with him, and Livia affectionately shortens his name to Lux, which Leon immediately adopts as his official nickname. However, their moment is interrupted when Lux informs Leon that Julius and his entourage are up to something. Meanwhile, Julius and his entourage excitedly show Marie and Kyle their newly constructed mech, which is built from salvaged parts of their destroyed mechs combined with new materials. They reveal the entire project costs 500,000 dias, which leaves Mary both horrified and enraged. Not long after, a rematch duel is arranged, and Greg is chosen to represent Julius's group. If he wins, Leon must stop interfering with their relationship with Marie. Unbeknownst to them, Leon fully intends to throw the fight, having no interest in meddling with them any longer. However, before the match begins, Lux warns Leon that Greg's armor is so poorly built that it is on the verge of exploding. When Leon tries to warn Greg and the referee, neither takes him seriously, dismissing his concerns due to his usual taunting behavior in past duels. With no other choice, Lux advises Leon to destroy the armor before it can explode. Though hesitant, Leon ultimately does so, preventing a fatal disaster, but in the process, Marie is left devastated over the massive financial loss. Later, Leon laments to Daniel and Raymond about how, despite everything, people still treat him like a vegan. They inform him that he is to be awarded for capturing Gertrude, and soon after, Angie drags him to the ceremony, eager to introduce him to her father and brother. As he stands at the event, Leon reflects on how much has changed. In the beginning, all he wanted was to find a wife and survive his time at the academy, yet now he is being honored for his achievements. At the ceremony, Leon receives a medal and is granted the title of Viscount by Master. Later, he meets Livia, who reminds him that she is still waiting for an answer to her confession. When he hesitates to speak, Livia tells him she'll wait for an answer with a smile on her face. Afterward, he reunites with Angie and ponders how his initial plan was to set Livia up with Julius's entourage. Now, however, he realizes he wants to clap both Livia and Angie. Lux comments that Leon is no different from Marie, having found himself entangled with multiple romantic interests. The remark irritates Leon, but Lux merely points out that he has no one to blame but himself for his current situation. If you made it to the end of this video, prove it by commenting "I love feet." And if you like anime recaps like this, then watch this video right here.